Welcome back to Mama Lotties, another week with 3 new recipes for you today. To start off, I have a delicious and wonderful tender stuffed aubergine. For the main course is everyone's favorite. It's a seafood dish, but this time it's a fideuà, and it's going to be very similar to paella, but with a little bit of a twist. And for dessert, we have everyone's typically favorite, the very traditional mantecados, but I've given it my own touch by adding something different. So join me whilst we make all 3 recipes today. So first up are the stuffed aubergines. Now for these you'll need 2 large aubergines, which we're going to cut open in the middle, lengthwise, okay? Now make sure, like with every vegetables, that you always clean them, wash them first. Okay, so we're going to cut them open and just cut the ends off. We don't want those green bits. And so what we're going to do with these today is we're going to take out the meat and we're going to stuff these, okay? So to take out the meat, the way that I do it is I sort of groove here the meat, so the inside of the stuffing, sort of cut it without cutting it too close to the skin and leaving a bit of a gap, okay? And then using a spoon to help you, you just take it out. We're going to pass these into a bowl. So what we're doing here, we're making a groove so that we can fill it, and that's where the stuffing is going to go. The great part about aubergines is that it's very, very soft and very tender. And what we're going to do is use the meat from the aubergines as part of our stuffing, so nothing gets wasted, okay? And we're going to use the different ingredients. We're going to use sun-dried tomatoes, cheese, chorizo, and some garlic, and we're going to flavor it as well with a bit of basil. So this dish is very, very versatile. You can use any ingredients you want to fill this. If you want to use meat, go ahead and use meat. If you want to change it up with some nuts, some pine nuts in there, you know, adapt it to what mood you're feeling that day, and you can't go wrong. The best thing is also to melt some cheese on top to give it that lovely little touch. So once you've taken out all the meat and you have sort of these empty casks of aubergine, we're going to pass them onto a baking tray. So we're going to put them here, and we're going to put these in the oven for about 8-10 minutes whilst we prepare the stuffing. So they're going to get softer and they're going to start to cook and, you know, just bake a bit, so that when we then put the stuffing and fill it and we put it back in the oven, it just saves you time on the cooking. So we'll get our olive oil, and we're going to drizzle it on top of these, okay? So you can use your finger to cover the top there and just drizzle olive oil on top of your aubergines. And we're going to season them, make sure to season it because it's very important, with some salt. And we can also get some pepper and just crush some black pepper on top of this as well. Now, like I said, this is going to go in the oven for about 8 minutes or so at 180 degrees so that we can cook them a bit whilst we make the stuffing. So the aubergines are in the oven. It's time for the fun bit, which is the stuffing. Now, this is the stuffing that we scooped out of those aubergine pieces, and as you can tell, very quickly it starts to change color, but don't worry, it's still good. So we'll take it out of the bowl and put it in your chopping board. So what we're going to do is chop this down and dice it down so you get little small pieces that then we can mix with the rest of our ingredients. So just chop it. And the great thing about aubergine that it's, like I said, so soft and tender that it's very easy to manipulate. And it's very rich as well with moisture, so that when we cook it, the food's not going to be dry. It's going to stay nice and moist and give it a nice texture as well. Now with this chopped down, we're going to pass it straight back into the bowl, and we're going to get the rest of the ingredients to mix with it. So for the stuffing mixture, I have sun-dried tomatoes because this is going to give it a really nice Mediterranean flavour, and I love it. It's very oily as well. It's very full of flavour, so we're going to definitely use those. We're going to get chorizo, which is going to give it that meaty flavour, that saltiness, that paprika sort of base that we always love in our dishes, and some garlic, and freshen up with a bit of basil. You can get fresh basil, or like I'm going to use now, which is some frozen basil. It's already chopped up and perfect for you. And we're going to top it up with some cheese, and I'm also going to add some cheese in this mixture so that it sort of combines everything whilst it's cooking, it melts and helps everything stick together. Get 2 or 3 slices of sun-dried tomatoes and just chop them down finely. We're going to do the same with the rest of the ingredients. We're going to try and get it as finely chopped as possible. So we're going to get the garlic now, and this is very simple. Like I said before, all we have to do now is just chop everything down and pass it in. So the most time consuming this bit is going to be the chopping. I mean, there's really nothing to it. So just really finely chop down the garlic, because you don't want to take a bite of a very large chunk of garlic in there. What we want this to do is sort of flavour it, but you know, when it gets softer, it's barely going to be noticeable when you take a bite. And just add it straight into the bowl as well. So nowadays they make everything very easy. You can already buy chopped up chorizo, you can buy chopped up ham. I mean, everything is almost done for you. So just put a handful in there as well. So just combine everything here. You can season it with a bit of salt as well. In there. Like I said, the basil, which we're going to add in here as well. You can get the oil from the sun-dried tomatoes and drizzle it in, and some cheese. So a handful of cheese in here, and just mix it all together nicely so you can mix all the ingredients and you can see sort of all the different colors and ingredients combining. Now you can add spinach to this as well, which will also release a lot of water, so just cook the spinach first and let it reduce and add it in if you want a different flavor. So the aubergines have been in the oven for a while now. They've started to cook. They've already released that excess water that it has, and it's gone a little bit more tender, so it's easier to cook. We're going to now stuff it. So we're just going to get spoonfuls of our mixture and pour it inside. Compress it all in there, fill it up with all that goodness. And now it's the best bit, which is going to be to cover everything in cheese. Cover it all up in cheese. There we go. Right, so these are all done and stuffed. They're covered in cheese. It's time to put them in the oven, but I'm going to turn the temperature down a bit so that it cooks but doesn't burn, okay? If you see that the cheese starts to burn, just cover it with foil and let it tenderize and soften. So the aubergines have been in the oven for about 20 minutes now. You can see that they're all golden melted on top. The cheese has gone wonderful. You can see that the aubergines are nice and tender and soft. So I think all that's left is to try this. So we're going to get one from the middle, and it's gone flatter. It's really nice in here. It's like a boat basically, and the stuffing is just sitting inside. So if you let this cool down for a bit, it'll stay firmer and it'll stay one piece. I don't have the patience, so I'm just going to go straight in there and we're going to cut a slice. Now what's great is as soon as you cut this open, you can smell that richness from the chorizo that sort of comes out, the fat that's melted there and has flavored this and actually given it a red tint as well. So let's try this. Delicious. So that chorizo, like I said, has infused this with so much flavor. That basil gives it a nice fresh touch as well, and it blends really nicely with the cheese. And the aubergines have softened up, so there's like, it's very tender. It sort of melts in your mouth and it's so easy to eat. And You can make this with whatever filling you want. So let's finish this off, and let's start off with our main course, the fideuà. So it's time for our main course now. It's going to be a fideuà. Now a fideuà is very similar to the paella. It's got all the favorite bits of the prawns, the calamares and the clams. But instead of rice, it uses fideuà pasta, which looks a bit like little angel hair pasta, just a bit thicker. So it looks like little macaronis, which we're going to add in here. And that's going to soften, it's going to tenderize, it's going to mix with all the flavors here. And the key to we're going to try and reach today is to get a socarat. And socarat is like that crispiness of that we get with the sauce when it starts to cook and we leave it there to sit for a bit. So start with a refrito, which is going to be the base of this, like all Mediterranean dishes. So we're going to dice down some tomates, some green peppers, half an onion and a few garlic, and just let all of this here sort of sit, cook, tenderize, soften, and the flavors combine with olive oil. And then we'll move on to the next bit. And our onion goes in here as well. So we'll let all the flavors combine. We'll let the onion soften up and become translucent. The peppers, also fry here, let all that flavor out. The tomatoes are gonna puree and soften into almost a sauce, but we can also top that up with some tomate triturado if we need to. And we're gonna now add the rest of our ingredients, which is the fish, the seafood, but not fish. We're gonna add in the rest of the ingredients, which is the seafood. So the calamares, the prawns, and the clams. So now it's time for the calamares. So you can ask your fishmonger to clean it for you. That way you avoid all the mess of the ink at home. So you get your calamares rinsed and washed, and we're going to cut them down into sort of rings. So I have a lovely piece of calamare here. It's fresh, which is great because if you go to the local market, you get fresh fish almost daily. So you can tell straight away that this is going to give you an amazing flavor to your dish. Now we don't want to waste anything, so we're going to use all the calamare in here. We're going to cut it all down into little bits. And we're going to even use the tentacles. We just have to make sure that we take off any hard bits that come inside, okay? Take off the beak and anything else that we don't really want to use. But this is the only thing really that we have to worry about cutting. Now you can rinse and peel the prawns if you want to, but I'm going to leave them whole because all that flavor inside will come out as it's cooking. And we have to make sure that our clams don't have any bad ones mixed inside, but I'll show you how to check that now. Right, so we'll just add these in here, but be careful because when it's cooking it releases a lot of water, so it might spit at you. So just cover it with all your refrito here, combine all those ingredients, and we're going to add in a bit of seasoning, so some salt in here as well, and some saffron herbs. Okay, so fresh saffron, it's really going to give this that traditional flavor and that color as well, that slight redness to this. Okay, so we're going to add that in there and stir it all in. Cook the calamares for about a minute or two, just so that it starts to, firm up and cook, and that flavor starts to come out. And we're going to add in the prawns at the same time. Cook that for a bit, and then add in the fideuà, the water, and the clams to that, and just let everything steam. So we've got some fresh prawns. We're going to cook these until they're nice and pink. So just get about 5 or 6 prawns in here. Prawns will turn pink as they're cooking, almost instantly start to change color. So just make sure you stir it. Let it sit here for a minute, And like I said, we're going to check the clams, okay? Now, you put them in water as soon as you buy them and check whether you have any floating ones. Any floaters are bad, so we're going to just take them out straight away. And what we have to check now is get them and sort of bounce them on top of one another. If you hear anything hollow like that, this is bad, so we'll take it off. Any good ones we'll keep and we'll put them in a bowl to use in our fideuà. So now that we've sorted out our clams and we've checked and we've separated the good ones from the bad, it's time to finish off our fideuà. So we'll add these to the mixture as well. Now these are going to cook very quickly and we're going to steam them. So in goes our clams and in also goes our fideuà. So it's about a handful per person. So here we have for about 3 or 4 people. So we'll put in a few. And we're just going to stir everything, okay? So mix it all and then cover it with hot water. So I boiled some water and I've mixed in a stock cube as well, just to give it that extra boost of flavour. So we're going to cover all our ingredients here with this water. And we'll let it sit here covered for about 15 minutes or so. We'll check on it to make sure that the pasta is cooking nicely, that the steam and the water is cooking our clams nicely and everything opens up. And once we've noticed that the pasta is slightly softer, we'll just let it open so that the excess water can reduce and finish cooking it off. So the fideuà has been here for about 15 minutes. It's been sitting covered so that the pasta and the clams sort of stew away and steam up. But halfway through, we opened it and added a bit of tomate triturado just to give it a bit of color, give it a bit of more moisture and sauce in there, okay, as well. So we just stirred everything in together. So it's time to serve this up and give this a try. As you can see, everything is cooked. The prawns are now very pink. The clams have all opened up and our caramales are nice and tender. So we can also see that at the bottom, and we can leave this for a bit longer, it started to sort of not burn, but it started to cook and give you that socarrat, that sort of really saltiness, that all that flavor that sort of sunk to the bottom has charred up and it's going to give this a very, very nice distinct flavor. So you're going to get that socarrat, and for me that is my favorite bit because that's got all the richness and all that flavor that sunk to the bottom in there. So let's try this now and get a bit of all that flavor that these fideuà have got. Beautiful. That is beautiful. The fideuà is really soft, really tender, and it soaked up all that flavor from the fish, from the refrito, from that pepper that we put in there as well. And for me, this is an absolute win. That tender caramel is going to go straight in my mouth. Yes. So this is a winner as it's a totally rich, hearty seafood dish. Very typical, very Iberian and very Mediterranean. So this is definitely going to fill you up and warm you up inside out. So now it's time for our dessert. I'm going to make a very satisfying and very indulgent mantecados dipped in chocolate. It's dessert time. So we're going to make a Gibraltar favorite, the mantecao. So mantecao are peanut butter cookies. Now usually these take lard so that we melt and we add into this, but I've replaced the lard with oil. So instead I have 200 milliliters of oil, which I'm going to pour into the bowl along with the sugar and just combine everything until smooth. And in goes our sugar with the oil. And now we're going to combine everything, okay? So just stir it until everything is coated and mixed and smooth. So once everything has mixed and combined, we're going to add in the peanut butter. So now I have chunky peanut butter to give our biscuits a bit of a crunch because peanut butter cookies tend to be very soft and tend to be very delicate. So these are going to give it just a bit of more of a bite. So we add in a small jar of peanut butter in here. and just do the same and stir it in, okay? Just mix it all together until it's smooth. So once this is all sort of mixed together well and it's nice and smooth, we'll add in the flour. Now the flour, as my granny says, is lo que admite. So I've measured it out. We have at least 450 grams of flour here. So we're going to add it in slowly. And what you want is a mixture that's not sort of too dry, but we don't want it to be wet that it's going to just disintegrate. We want it to be able to be moldable, because we're going to then mold these into the biscuit shapes. So when you see that it starts to separate from the rest of the bowl and that it sort of reminds me a bit like a sherbet kind of consistency. So it's very smooth and it's very sort of soft and fragile to touch. So don't be fooled, add a bit more flour, because when this gets hot, especially when you're rolling in your hands and you're putting it in the oven, it's gonna sort of melt, and what you don't want is for it to turn into a runny mess, basically. So when you can combine it like this, you know you have the right dough consistency, and we can now start molding it into the biscuits. Get a spoonful in your hand, sort of roll it, squeeze it, roll it around a bit, and then squish it down until you have sort of a biscuit, okay? So a cookie shape. Okay, we're going to shape into a bit of a slightly flattened ball on your baking dish, because this is going to sort of shrink a bit and flatten out with the heat. It's going to melt slightly and then take shape. So we've laid out 12 mantecados. In total, you should be able to get at least 24. And we're going to put these in the oven and let them cook and crisp and bake. They're going to change color, go nice and golden and crisp. We don't want the heat too high, or else you're just going to burn the outside and keep the inside completely undone. So in it goes for about 10 minutes, but we'll keep an eye on it. So I've taken the mantecados out of the oven now. As you can see, they've opened up and you can see all the cracks now. They've gone nice and golden and crisp on top, but they're still quite soft and very fragile. So, and excessively hot. So make sure you don't burn yourself, don't touch them. Let them cool down for a good 10-20 minutes. And in the meantime, we can start melting the chocolate and preparing it, because what I'm gonna do is drizzle them nicely. If they cool down in time, we can even dip them in the chocolate, okay? So, it's time for the Baño Maria. Now the Baño Maria, as we've done before, is just some hot water in a pot, and on top you get a glass bowl. So we'll heat up the water and put in our chocolate bits, okay? I've got dark chocolate. Now the darker the chocolate for me, the better. But if you like milk chocolate, go ahead and use that. And just let it melt slowly. And actually I've got dark chocolate with a few orange bits in it to give it just a little bit of an extra indulgence, because we don't have enough yet. Now just stir this over the heat until it becomes all silky and soft. So the chocolate's melted now, so we're going to now drizzle these, okay? These are cold and you can actually touch them. So we're going to get some chocolate and just slowly drizzle all the way up. And like I said, these are going to be really tasty, really rich, and very, very indulgent. Just drizzle them however you want. Let the chocolate create like a little pattern on top. And if you're feeling very adventurous and very confident, you can even dip a few in there. So how amazing do these look? I'm meant to let them cool down, but I don't have the patience for that. So I'm just gonna go and attack them right away. Now let's go for this one. Oh. I can't even speak. Now these, with a cup of tea, perfecto. They are so sweet, they are soft, they have a nice crunch from that peanut butter, for that crunchy peanuts. And then you have that smooth, indulgent chocolate, which gives this that finishing touch. This, with a cup of tea or a coffee, I'm done for the day or for the week. So if you really enjoy these recipes, you can find them all on mamalotties.com. And if you want to see 3 more, join me next week for 3 new recipes so I can make you fat. No? Is that okay? You can check out these tasty recipes and more by picking up a Mama Lotties cookbook or visiting mamalotties.com.